is Courtney. I'm so excited to share this workshop with you today from Women Living Fearlessly, a book that I participated in with Women Changing the World. And the title of my chapter was Women Living Fearlessly, Changing Stilettos to Snow Boots to Make Stories About Climate Change. So I hope that during my presentation, which I'm going to take you through now, I'm going to share a little bit about what my life's been like, my sliding door moment, which changed my life, and how I moved from stilettos to snow boots and making documentaries on climate change, and also found myself on the Greenland ice sheet. So where do I start? Well, firstly, I'd like to say congratulations to everybody that's listening to this, because I'm sure, like many of us, we're looking for different meaning in our life. We're looking for support in our life, for ideas, hearing from other people their stories about something they face that we can relate to, things that we might be considering changing in our life. So I'd like to say thanks for turning up today and listening to my story. I never imagined back in 2010 that I'd actually be talking to you here on Zoom, or traveling to London, receiving an award by Women Changing the World for my work in media, or talking to women in New York. I literally was far from my wildest dreams, but my life took a really interesting change. So I really want to share with you today some of that story and take you on a journey from learning to live fearlessly, and a life that nearly ended on the way to the North Pole. It saw me get lost in the pitch black of the Amazon jungle, and where I truly met myself for the first time on the Greenland ice sheet. And let me tell you, being a female on a 1,000-kilometer expedition with an all-female crew does come with its own sets of logistics, but I'll let you ponder on that one. So as a woman, no matter what dreams we have or businesses we create, those nagging fears like, can I do it? What if? Am I really good enough? They can all take hold. But today I want to share with you some stories from my own unexpected world of mini life about the lessons that I've learned, and also some of those fears that I've conquered. But just a little bit about me before we head off on an adventure. I'm Liz Courtney, and I once walked the corporate hallways in Stilettos as a managing director of Ogilvy PR in Australia. I later moved on to work in another company where I was a partner. We grew the company from around 15 staff to 60, and we sold it to a big firm in the US. It was around that time that I also had my first son, Dakota, love you, Monty, love you, Indiana. And I felt a deep calling to want to reconsider kind of where I'd gone in my life, what I'd already achieved, what mountains I'd already climbed, and what I wanted to do next. And also, I really felt a longing to make what I was going to do next more meaningful. I wanted to do something that I could contribute to my kids' life and the next generation. And I got very interested also in all the stories around climate change and what was happening to our planet, and my concerns about what was going to happen and what sort of life and future I was leaving for my children. So I left behind my comfortable life to start a small production company. And to begin with, I made a few documentaries. I really can't even remember how I landed my first contract. It was a little challenging. They said, yeah, can you do that in 2 languages? And I'm like, yeah, I guess I could. And so, it was logistics and challenges from the beginning. But 15 years on from this sliding door moment in my life, which I'm about to tell you about, I've directed over 55 documentaries, and I have some of the largest body of work that's been done in the world in climate change. But it almost didn't happen. So let me share some slides with you, and I really want to share with you how my life nearly didn't change and some of my learnings from that. So my sliding door moment happened when I got a phone call to ask me if I would like to direct something in Antarctica. And to begin with, I did think awesome. Then I thought horrendous, big oceans, Drake Passage, And when I sat down and discussed it with the family, with my children and my husband, I said I had this opportunity, but I also said, I've said no, I'm not going to do it. And they all said, but why? Like, this is awesome. Why aren't you doing it? And I was like, all those motherly guilt things like, I can't do it, too long away from you. Who's going to do the school runs, the lunch boxes, the sports schedules? Like, you got it right. So anyway, it was that night I was looking at myself in the mirror and I thought, hey, what's that real reason that you're not going? And I realized it was my fear. And I realized that my fear was really holding me back from stepping through this sliding door moment in my life. And I thought I can either define myself by my fear, or I can define my life for me and learn how to walk through that fear and be fearless. And I just tell people, I had seen a terrible film a few weeks prior, which was called A Perfect Storm. So I just did have these imaginations of these massive seas. And I wasn't far from it because, as you can see here, the sort of seas that we traveled on going to the Drake Passage were massive. But the next day, after saying no, I called back and said yes. And so I walked through that sliding door. I was determined to take that step, take that leap. And it was really a changing point in my life. I had no idea that Antarctica was really going to change my life the way that it did. And I'm so grateful that I said yes to taking that step. I learned a lot from being on that expedition. One, I learned about pushing myself, breaking boundaries. I also learned about different perspectives in life. And firstly, Antarctica is the most extraordinary place you'll ever find on the planet. It's like going to another world. And I never thought something so beautiful, so vast, so expansive, and so precious existed. So to have seen all of that and gone there with 40 teenagers from around the world, it was the United Nations Year of Youth. So it was a massive expedition. And I was so lucky to go along as a filmmaker with a small crew. Coming back, we hit something that was close to a Category 5 hurricane. So it actually looked like this. And we were breaking through massive, massive waves, dropping 10 meters. Waves were breaking over us. And actually, it was nighttime. And I remember making a call back home to my husband, and I said, I might make it. We've hit a terrible storm on the Drake Passage. I just remember him saying, oh, pull yourself together. I'm like, okay. And then the 40 teenagers, many of them were up on the enclosed deck with the night captain, the day captain, and another captain, all up there with big spotlights looking for icebergs. But the teenagers were saying, wow, this is better than going to Disney World. This is better than a Big Dipper ride. And I thought, wow, that's an interesting perspective. Change your perspective sometimes on things. See how other people see them. And in changing my perspective, I actually managed to go back to my cabin at about 3 a.m, put a seatbelt on so I didn't get blown out of the cabin bed, and I actually went to sleep. And so I learned a lot about fear, breaking through sliding door moments, also taking other people's perspectives to see things differently. And that was my first big challenge of learning to live life fearlessly. I think that once you do that, there's a bit of a ripple effect. And so the next thing that happened from that sliding door leap was that I had an opportunity to create the concept for a big climate series here in Australia. And I really looked hard for about 6 months and did development and research work. But I came across a story by Professor Tim Lenton about the tipping points of the climate system. And I thought, this is just such a powerful way to try and explain to everybody about the climate being a system and about different elements of the climate working together, whether it's the oceans, the atmosphere, the monsoonal systems, the water storage systems on the planet, where we store carbon within nature and within oceans. I wanted to really understand it all. And I pitched the idea here to my local broadcasters, but they thought the idea was interesting, too big, never get the funding. So I just decided to jump a plane. I went to Washington, D.C. I went and knocked on all the different broadcasters there. I got 2 callbacks. And one asked me to go to Atlanta. I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll go to Atlanta. I had absolutely no idea where Atlanta was. Sorry, Atlanta, but I know where you are now. And I jumped a plane, went to Atlanta, pitched the project. And within another 48 hours in the Qantas lounge in LA, waiting to come back, I was there with a co-presenter, and we got a text and it said, yep, we're in. And that beginning was a ripple effect. That big first investor that came into the series then created a ripple effect with 7 other broadcasters around the world. And we found ourselves on the Greenland ice sheet about 8 weeks later. And so my sliding door from stilettos to snow boots nearly didn't happen because it was my fear that was about to trip me up. And then secondly, when I got given all the no's in Australia, I could have just stopped, but I actually decided to use those no's as rocket fuel. And so I became more determined. And here I found myself on the Greenland ice sheet with the film crew. Again, remember, very flat, really hard to do the whole bathroom thing as a female. But I actually learned to say to the crew, just stop, turn around, got to take a break. And I think the first day that I was out there, I realized this predicament. And I thought, well, if I just don't drink anything today in -20 on an ice sheet, maybe I can get through to whenever we stop and put up tents. But then I realized you get so dehydrated when you're in very cold weather. So that really wasn't going to work. So I had to bite the bullet and move through again, another sliding door in my life. But one of the things that happened was that we were traveling, and you'll see this out on the ice sheet, and 2 amazing things happened. The first thing that happened was I actually saw myself and I went, wow, who are you? And I remember hearing this little voice as you see this flat surface, sun shining, -20 at the end of the earth. And I heard this little voice say, I'm your adventurous self. Oh, finally, a chance to meet you. We've got so much work to do on this planet. Let's get going. And I was like, wow, I'm an adventurer. I never really knew that. And I never knew how much I loved adventuring. And I loved being out there with nature, with wind, with ocean, with the dogs. They're a little bit smelly when you go downwind of them, but they're fine. And I thought, wow, this is another part of me who I've never known. And I realized in that moment how rare it is to get that opportunity to have that moment, to be so far from anyone who truly knows you, and to redefine who you are, because you're just seeing yourself. You're not seeing how other people see you, how your family sees you, how your friends see you, how your workplace sees you. They all kind of make up a bit of a veneer for, I think, who you think you are. But when you strip all that away, it's amazing what you find underneath it. And so I really encourage you all to try and find a moment where you can just have that space to find out within you who you really are and to honor that voice. Now, while I was in that moment, a few hours later, we were still moving on the dog sled, and we came across an open lea. An open lea is where the ice, and remember we're on frozen sea ice, the ice has a break in it. Usually the breaks aren't too big. So what we were doing is we turned and got the dogs. I was the first, second sled across, and you move really fast with the dogs running towards that lee. They jump over it. Theoretically, the sled goes over it. You keep going. As we were approaching this, and I was going over first so I could kind of arrange where I wanted the cameras to be, et cetera. And we jumped over it. But on the other side of this openly, it was like quicksand. And the dogs were super antsy. I realized we were in trouble. The other sleds halted. And in that moment, we had just to be focused. The adrenaline was pumping. Really no time for letting the fear out, letting anything out, just to be focused. The Inupiat hunters turned our dog sleds around, the two of them, and we moved with speed. We had about 30 seconds to get off, turn around, jump back over. But in that moment, I remembered that feeling of fearlessness, and we moved through that moment to the other side. You know, if we had lingered or waited too long, we didn't have that option. So we just had to be quick, fast, move, follow direction, not think about it, just survive and get back across the other side. And we did it. And that kind of built up even more strength in my own sense of being fearless. Another short story, which I love to share short stories about. I had a film crew. We were in the Amazon rainforest, and we were thousands of miles away from any cities or any small towns. We got there by using the river system for 3 days, and we were at a research station that was only half built. They'd actually built the walls and put a roof on. There were no door frames and no doors, window frames, no windows. And at nighttime, we had generators for about 4 or 5 hours that we could have power and light on, and we could also generate and charge up our batteries. And so in the middle of all of that, not just being a director, but you're a producer because you're a small team, I wandered away from the camp with my sat phone, trying to get access in the night sky through the treetops. And I finally had been walking for about 10 minutes, and I got somewhere, and I was on the phone actually back to Flight Centre in Australia, believe it or not. And suddenly everything went dark, and I realized it was 10 o'clock at night. I'd wandered away from the camp. I did not have my headlight, and the sat phone gave out tiny amounts of light. And here I was, pitch dark. I didn't know which way to turn. I didn't know how to get back. But I felt myself just say, be calm. You can do it. You can get there. And I packed my fear away again, and I slowly inched my way back in the direction I thought we needed to go. A little bit of light from the sat phone, and what seemed to be an eternity, but I finally made it back and felt the edge of the forest moving into some smooth grass, and I knew I was back. And so for me, that was just another sort of lesson in overcoming fear and moving into being able to do what you need to do in the moment. And I think that sometimes, we need to be fearless. And sometimes in the boardroom, I faced moments of having to pitch or having to have discussions with clients that were difficult, or having to have discussions with staff that were difficult. But I don't ever remember having to confront such situations that built me to be such a fearless person and woman. But all of this is preparation for the lives that, you want to live. So what I'd like to do is share with you just some messages that I had about, firstly, just making sure that you understand how to set a compass and have a couple of guiding principles around how you think about your life. And if you're looking to trade that old identity in for something more meaningful, Life is an adventure, and I just wanted to say it's waiting for you to discover who that fearless woman inside you is. So here's a few of my tips. When somebody says no to you, just turn it around to meaning go. Make it your rocket fuel. Make it inspire you to want to do the thing that sometimes people with limited ideas or thoughts think, no, 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 no. But just turn it, believe in yourself. Another thing is change your world. So while the thing that you want to do for you makes a lot of sense, and it's the journey that you will really want to go on, other people around you might, from their own point of fear or their own point of limited experience in that, say, no, 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 I wouldn't advise you to do that. That's okay. They will be saying that from their perspective. Make sure you have a lens on that and know how you want to change your world, what your new journey is, and gather people around you that are going to inspire you and that also understand that journey that you want to go on. If you think, I can't do it all, I can't be a mother, I can't be a great partner, I can't be a great businesswoman, I can't change what it is that I want to do, actually stop for a moment and think, it's all about balance. And instead of choosing between any of them, look at how to blend them. That was my big lesson, was learning, how do I blend those things and how do I move through it with more peace within myself and allow other people to step in and help me. The other thing is to recognize when your sense of duty really is just fear holding you back. And so for me, my sense of duty is being a mother, 3 children, busy household. That was my sense of duty, but it disguised fear for me. And so no, truly ask yourself, is this my sense of duty? Is this my fear? What is it that's holding me back? And I want to say it's never too late to make changes in your life and to do the things that you truly feel drawn to do. I made my change in my early 40s when people would say, wow, that's too late to make a change. It's what I wanted to do. I really believed in that pathway. And I just want to inspire you at any time or any age just to step through that sliding door, let the fear go and be fearless, to follow what it is in your heart that really makes you sing, makes you get up every day and makes you want to make a difference. So playing it forward, when I first went to Antarctica in 2010, in 2023, I got to go back to Antarctica a second time. And I really felt like I'd come full circle in my sliding door moment, because I got to travel and take my eldest son with me as part of my film crew. And I felt, firstly, playing it forward was just such a privilege to be able to do that. And also to take 2 emerging female scientists with us to help promote and make more young girls and women aware of the role that they can play in science and in STEM, and being part of the solutions and change we urgently need on the planet. I did shed a few tears when I landed back in Antarctica. I thought going there once in my lifetime was just an extraordinary experience and a privilege. Being there twice in my lifetime, I just couldn't believe that I could go there a second time. But I was so happy, as I said, to be playing it forward to the next generation. And this experience has also become everybody on the cruise sliding door moment, from my son to the emerging female scientist to our lead scientist, who is a sea level expert. And I remember saying to them, when you go there, you won't come back the same person. Something within you will change. And they all said, yes, yes, yes. And when we finally got back, they said, yes, you were right. So this is just a little bit of Antarctica to share with you. The most amazing place. That was my sliding door moment in life. In my first trip to Antarctica, I had the absolute privilege of taking two First Nation people with me, two young Indigenous First Nation teenagers. And I always remember asking Malcolm when he came back what the trip taught or showed him. And he said, there are some people who dream and wake up from their dreams. And there are other people who dream and they make their dreams their reality. And he said, that's who I want to be, and that's what I want to be. And I've always carried that in my heart because I think it's such a powerful reminder to say, dream, wake up for your dreams and make those dreams your reality. And I think everybody who's listening is a dream maker. And I think you all have amazing ideas of who you are, who you want to become, what you want to do. And I just think we can all do something to make the world a better place for the next generation. And whatever you choose to do, remember to live your life fearlessly. And I hope that you will thoroughly enjoy the book that we have all contributed to Women Living Fearlessly with Women Changing the World. And I leave you with one last thought. We do know that there are solutions and people are doing amazing things. So we need to be positive. And I call these the positive tipping points, where we're actually seeing new ideas about regenerative coral within urban cities, where we're seeing ideas about young communities coming together to clean up natural habitats, where we're seeing people who are planting mangrove farms around the edges of coastal communities to combat against rising sea level. So we are actually seeing positive changes from cities turning off coal power plants to cities who are nearly 100% on electrified cars, to companies that are coming up with new fuels to use vegetable oils to power airplanes in the future. There are the most innovative and amazing ideas coming forward. So I think that we know action builds hope. And I also want to leave you with the feeling and knowledge that hope also drives actions. And I think we're at a point in time where we know we must make change. And I want to just support all those positive tipping points that you as individuals are doing, small businesses, companies, and governments are mandating to make those changes. And one last thing, when you wake up tomorrow morning, I want you to do one thing. I want you to look up into the sky and I want you to remember this. We are on a planet that is traveling through the solar system as I'm talking to you. It is the only planet in our solar system that we know has life. And it is the only planet in our solar system that has that thin blue line between us and space that supports life. And every day we're putting over 4 atomic bombs into that thin blue line. So I want you to remember, it's not the Truman Show, this is real life. We have real situations. We need to be fearless to actually work together to make the changes that we need to give the next generation and those to come a better life and a better world. Thank you so much. I'm Liz Courtney. Stilettos to Snow Boots has been my life. I hope you've enjoyed my story.